Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I want to show you how I take my brows from this to this. Fluffy brows have been a huge trend for the last couple of years and for really good reason. They're super flattering. Fluffy brows are also very youthful. They're really eye-opening and I think they look good on so many people. So first step, before we go in with any brow products, I'm going to take a clean spoolie. I'm going to brush that through my brow hairs because as you can see, I have my foundation on, my full face of makeup is on. So it's really important to make sure you brush out any excess product that may have gotten into your brows like foundation or powder. So making sure that they're nice and clean, I'm just brushing them up. You can see I don't have a lot of brow hair. So this is something that I would never leave my house without doing, is my brows. My first product that I'll be using is the Huda Beauty Micro Shade Brow Pencil in Rich Brown. So this pencil is a micro pencil, meaning it is absolutely tiny and super skinny. So you have to be very delicate when you're using these micro pencils because they tend to break extremely easy. So I'm actually gonna lower it so it's much shorter, so the chances of me breaking it is a lot less. So I'm gonna start with my hard brow, which I consider this brow to be my hard brow. It's my problem child. This brow is much easier to fill in. It's a lot thicker, believe it or not. So I like to start with my hard side because that way it's a lot easier for me to match up my easy side with my hard side, if that makes sense. So I'm gonna be using a very light touch because like I mentioned, this brow pencil is very thin and easy to break. So I'm gonna be focusing most of the color from this brow pencil in the center of my brow, going upward, creating an arch, and then filling in the tail. And once I get that bottom definition on my brow, I'm gonna start to lightly use a flicking motion to run a really light wash of this brow pencil into my brows. And what I mean by that is I'm taking it and I'm just flicking it up rather than going in and creating like a harsh line with this pencil. I'm trying to keep it as soft as possible, but if you do mess up, you make it a little too harsh, we're gonna go back in, we're gonna brush it out so you have a chance to fix it. For me, I love to bring brows out just a little bit further than they naturally are. To me, this really helps to frame your face. Try not to talk too much when I'm applying this pencil because I am resting my pinky on my chin for stability and balance, which is so important when you're trying to perfect your brows. So you can see I left the very inner part of my brow almost completely bare. We're gonna go back in much later on and fill that part in. Going back in with my clean spoolie, I'm going to just gently brush that brow pencil through my brows just to take off a little bit of that color and soften them just a touch before we go in with a tinted brow gel. Moving on to a tinted brow gel, this one's from KOSAS. It's the Air Brow in medium brown. I absolutely love a good tinted brow gel in my kit and on myself, especially one that contains fibers. And this one has a really good amount of fibers, which you can see as you pull it out of the container. You can almost see the fibers pulling down. That's how you know you're gonna get a nice, thick, voluminous brow. So you'll notice I'm going against the way my brows naturally grow because I wanna really deposit a good amount of this fiber gel and the color before I brush it back over and shape it. This will just give you a heavier amount of color saturation with the tinted products, and it'll also add a little more volume and a little more thickness to your brows. Because rather than just coating one side, going in one direction, you're going across it, you're coating the inside of your brows and you're bringing it across, coating the outside. So you're getting a much thicker effect. So don't pay attention to how messy it is right now because we're gonna go back in at the very end and fine tune them and clean up the shape. Moving on to my absolute secret weapon. This is such a game changer and it's a way to fake a laminated brow effect. It also will give you all day hold. You could literally jump in a pool and your brows will not move. Going back to that same spoolie, I'm gonna run a very small amount of this glue into my spoolie. You wanna use this stuff very sparingly because it is super intense. I'm gonna start in the center of my brow. I'm gonna press it down. start to work it up. And you can see this is laying down my brow hair instantly. I'm applying such little pressure. I'm not pushing this into my brows too hard or aggressively. I'm just lightly pressing this product into my brows. But this is what's going to ultimately give you that fluffy brow effect. I'm going back in with a teeny bit more of that spiking glue just to start to feather up the inner part of my brows. And for some reason, my brows are the most stubborn in this inner portion, and they have the hardest time staying up. So this is actually where I deposit the most of the spiking glue. Now I'm taking a flat shading brush, dipping into my Bobbi Brown concealer and foundation palette, just taking a tiny bit of concealer. I'm gonna start to shape and clean up my brows. So now I'm gonna clean up this little area where I have separation from my foundation because of the brow product. I would usually do this towards the end, but it's gonna drive me crazy to look at this before I finish my brows, so I'm just gonna cut to it now. And I'm using such a tiny amount of product because, you know, I want to keep it nice and natural. I'm not trying to have those Instagram carved out brows. I'm just trying to clean them up just a little bit. Now I'm going to go in with a little bit more concealer. I'm going to define the tail. You can see how it's a little messy. It's a little like blown out. I'm going to cut right through the bottom. I have a teeny bit of very old microblading left on my brows right here, which is what I'm trying to cover up, because ultimately I want to have my brows lifted up more and straight out rather than curved down. So that step is not going to be necessary for everyone, it's just necessary for me and how I want my brows to look. And then taking whatever's left over, shading on the bottom of my brow, just to naturally clean them up a little bit more. So as you can see, there's a huge difference between this brow and this brow. This brow is brushed up, it's more lifted, it looks more fluffy, it looks fuller naturally, whereas this brow kind of brings down my eye a little bit, whereas this one gives me more of an open-eyed effect because it is so brushed up. So I just finished putting the brow glue in this brow. It's nice and brushed up, it's totally dry, and I'm gonna go in and repeat the step I have on this tail, on this tail. For this step, I really try to look straight ahead in the mirror because I get the full picture of how my brows are landing, like as far as placement goes. So it's a lot more difficult to tell where you need to place this concealer the more turned you are. So again, looking straight ahead so I can match this brow to this brow. Cutting straight across the tail. And this is a really thick, full coverage concealer, which I think works the best for me personally, because I am trying to cover up just a little bit, like I said, of my old microblading to reshape the tail of my brow. So if I went with a more liquid concealer, it'd be a lot harder to achieve this look and get the amount of coverage that I need. And also I find that using a cream concealer for this technique is a lot easier because you have more control on where the product is going. So before I blend out this concealer, I'm going to take another step back and look straight into my mirror to make sure that they are as close to being sister brows as possible, because they're never going to be twins. They're always going to be a little different, and that's fine. Whatever's left over on my brush, I'm just bringing that underneath the inner part of my brow, just lightly shaping it a little more and cleaning it up. So now this is a great time to go in and finish up your brows and fill in any more sparse areas that you might have. So for me, I still have sparseness right here. I have a little bit right here. I have a big chunk right here. And then also to even out my brows in length a little bit more, because these tend to go out a little bit longer. Like I said, this was a problem child. I'm gonna bring this brow out a touch more just to even them out and make it easier. Taking the NYX Lift and Snatch Brow Tint Pen. So before I open this and apply, I'm gonna shake the product. With liquids like this, you really need to shake the product. That way they come out fully pigmented and not runny. So for this product, the way I like to use it and the best way to use it is by flipping it upside down and just lightly feathering it up and using a very light amount of pressure. And you still want to use this product in the natural direction that your brows are growing. So I'm going to feather them outward towards the tail. Towards the center, I'm going to go at a very slight angle. And this is where you want to be very careful because you don't want to deposit too much color where it looks harsh. Okay, so this side's done. Same thing, I'm going to hold the marker straight down, pulling the product up. So I'm going to go in and fill this little hole in my brows right here with the brow pen. Now this step isn't necessary for everyone, but for me personally, I have very oily skin and my brows tend to get super shiny throughout the day. So I'm gonna just take a little bit of the Makeup Forever HD powder. This is totally colorless, and a small blending brush. I'm just going to lightly pat a little bit of this powder on top of my brows. And when I say a little bit, I mean the tiniest bit of this powder. So I'm really just gonna focus this powder on the center of my brow, towards the tail at the very outer corner, and also to set my concealer that I use to carve out my brow and to conceal my microblading. You'll notice I'm just very lightly patting this onto the concealer. If I were to go in and blend it, I would disrupt all that coverage that I worked so hard on placing. And same with my brows. I don't want to disrupt my brows, even though they are totally set with that brow glue. I'm just going to lightly press that on to my brows. This is a step that I don't ever skip because this really keeps my brows from looking too overly shiny throughout the day. So this is the finished look. These are my fluffy brows. They're full, they're defined, they're shaped, and they are so much thicker than what I started with. Another thing I want to remind you guys just one more time is not to agonize over getting your brows perfectly to match up. Get them as close as possible, but at the end of the day, just remember, it adds character in my opinion, and they're sisters, they're not twins. I would also love to see your version of a fluffy brow, so tag me on Instagram. I'm at Makeup by Nikki LaRose, and I'll see you guys soon.